Hello, I'm here again, Dr. Snedeker, here to do my podcast, where I just talk about whatever I want. Pretty good podcast idea, right? Oh, you're gonna talk? You're just gonna talk about anything? Exactly. And those of you who have been listening understand that. It's off the cuff. Things that have been on my mind recently. And one thing that I was reminded of that is currently taking place in downtown Grand Rapids is ArtPrize. So I thought I would talk a little bit about my involvement and my experience with ArtPrize as a local over the last, however long it's been around, 6 years? 7 years? Actually 8 years at this point. Just some of my thoughts and criticisms of it, especially in the musician category, which, not a lot of people get exposed to that at ArtPrize. It all depends on how you were able to present your music. And some people find creative ways to showcase it. Other people, they're in bands and they're just trying to get on some limited slots, but we're going to talk about a lot of that today in today's episode. So why don't we just get right into it? I didn't mean for it to fade out so suddenly. I lifted my foot off the sustain pedal and it stopped immediately. Hello. Quick reminder before we start. If you dig my podcasts, anything about this particular episode, if you're watching on YouTube, like, follow, comment, all those things, subscribe, leave a comment if you want to, interact. I do check for those. And you can also listen to it, which some of you might be doing right now, on platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. Any way that you can rate or review the podcast, be a big help. What you dig about it, what you don't dig about it. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can find me on patreon.com /Dr. Snedeker. And you can get early access to podcast episodes and exclusive merch and other goodies and stuff. I believe I put that in the ad that will pre-roll before this. I'm actually going to record a new ad because I've been using the same one for months, and I think it's about time I update some things. But anyway, ArtPrize. What is ArtPrize for some of you who might be listening that aren't in the arts world or haven't been to Grand Rapids in the last few years, in the fall, like at the beginning of school, late September, early October? ArtPrize is an international competition for artists of all mediums, and there are various prizes that are awarded to different artists. I don't really know what the prizes are this year. I know there's smaller amounts of money being given to different creators. There's smaller amounts of money for these mini, born out of ArtPrize projects or involvement opportunities for artists who are already contributing. And there have been big awarded prizes, hundreds of thousands of dollars awarded to people who win a mixture of either a popular vote or a critic's vote. So there's different categories. Everyone has the opportunity to vote depending on, if you have a current up-to-date phone. We found that out recently when we went and saw my friend Eli Kahn at Muse Gallery over on the west end of Grand Rapids. Go check out that space. Stephen Smith is a great dude. I just watched his kind of young proteges in this group called The Collective, spelled COLLEC7IVE. Or maybe it's COLLECT 7VE. There's a 7 in it. If you look up Stephen Smith Collective or Muse Gallery, you'll find it on Google. But it's a small gallery, newer gallery space on the West End, Black-owned gallery. Great artwork. I saw a 4-canvas painting by Isan. He's a great artist. You can look up his work, as well as Pluto Monday is his electronic artist name. But we went to see my friend Eli Khan with his installation. It's a track off of his recent record that features cellist Jordan Hamilton, and I'm blanking on the names right now. the name of the track, something with dreams in it. You know what? You know what I can do? I can look it up right now because I have the technology to do that. Eli Khan music. And I'll probably just see it pretty close. Or no, what I can do even better, Eli Khan ArtPrize. This is very riveting, by the way. It's always riveting when you can't really see what I'm doing. Oh, here we go. In My Dreams, We Levitate is the name of the track. You can listen to that on his recent album. But he is in the time-based category. And he created kind of a surround sound mix of that track where you're kind of standing in the center of the 7 speakers. Elements of the track are kind of, panned and moved around the speakers playing. It's not just like a mono signal, which is usually one speaker source, or a stereo where you have the left and right, which a lot of people have in their homes if they have more than just like a Bluetooth speaker. And then, 7.1 surround sound, that's for the, the theater nerds, the audiophiles, the people who want kind of a more immersive audio listening experience, and it requires a bit of extra engineering. So it's not like he took his track and put it on, just put it on an iPod and called it a day. He had to have it kind of re-engineered to the taste of how he wanted the music to be experienced in that way, and having it as kind of a pairing to a visual art gallery was cool to just be able to browse some art while experiencing this track. But we were trying to vote, and one of our friends had an older iPhone, and it couldn't, the QR code wouldn't open and work to have them vote. They needed to have an iPhone 7 or higher. So that's a small just a tiny thing that it's the crack in the veneer for ArtPrize, because most people consume ArtPrize as this kind of passive absorption of art. Spectacle art gets a lot of attention, which is fair. If you build a giant robot that is taller than most people and can be seen from, different vantage points, more people are going to see it. But if you're a canvas painter and your art gets installed in a bank, not everyone's going to see it. So if you get the idea, ArtPrize tries to be very intentional with, like, we want to accept all kinds of art, whether it's photography, dance, theater, canvas painting, sculpture, metalwork, all these different types of art mediums, music, movies, film and television type stuff. They want to accept everything, but they don't give everyone the same amount of attention. And sure, if you're curating a gallery and you have pieces you want to feature, you work on that wing or that exhibit and you tier it towards that artist. But when it's a million different artists, from the hobbyist, person sketching pop art, or the high art conceptual New Yorker, or the European aesthetic, sculptor, there's a lot of different intersections of art. And when it turns into a tourist thing, sure, that's more exposure, and it increases a potential for new people to follow what you're doing. Some people might even be able to sell pieces. They might be able to have their art, when it's done at ArtPrize, moved to another gallery in the area, or maybe picked up in a gallery closer to home. And those are all byproducts anyway of, just being artists. If you're hanging your art in a gallery, people are going to see that art, but not everyone's going to go to that gallery. If you're a musician playing at Pete's Bar, not everyone's going to go to Pete's Bar. Maybe someone's going to, the local brewing company, somewhere where it's like industrial modern with like wood, carved wood tabletops and 700 craft beers on tap or something. Not everyone's going to hear your music because it's not so much the forcing of people to view art, as some people might think ArtPrize would do. Like you can't really walk anywhere without seeing some sort of hanging art, some sort of installation, some sort of time-based event happening, especially on the weekends. And, with some sort of number attached to it or a QR code to get to the voting part, some sort of signage. That doesn't mean you're necessarily engaged with it. Exposure doesn't mean engagement. And it's so tricky to try and do these types of things. Offer, on the one hand, you're offering this platform that's been built for almost 10 years to encourage artists to showcase their art and contribute to this, transformation of a town into an art gallery. But how often do people go to art galleries? What are the consumption of art has, it continues to change. Some people like, the whole thing with NFTs is an interesting thing because on the one hand, people go, well, I can just look up the image and download it and print it out and have it for myself. Like, who cares who owns the digital thing? But then in the art world, there's all these arbitrary values and inflations of art prices just for the random, random reasons. It could be some dude overbid on a piece and now that artist's like gets a report and you're like, oh, this guy's sold a painting for $100,000. Like, who is this guy? I need him to design, like some wealthy client's going to hire an interior designer to like hire this artist to work on an interior space or something. And sure, fine. People get those opportunities and it's fine. ArtPrize is the attempt to create engagement where it's not always there because art is so, it's this weird, it continues to be in a weird space. You think of where people could see art even 30 years ago, let's say the 90s, 80s, 90s, 20, 30 years ago, we'll say. You have the CD, so you can take that, put it in your car, put it in your house. Vinyl, usually you put that in your house, usually for the people who like to sit down and listen or who harken back to the old school way of listening. Digital files weren't really there yet. They didn't come till later in the 90s, early 2000s. So it was buying physical things to listen to, and that kind of tiered engagement. You would go see someone at a concert, and because of the lack of an internet, you kind of had to just hope you drove past a venue and saw the marquee lineup or a poster around town, or some friend who's more connected to the scene would tell you how to, see this band, and you would go see them. Now, because there's such a media heavy focus on even the smallest artist, all these people who give tips for how to be an artist, they're like, well, you can't just make music. You also have to make engaging content. You have to make, you have to learn each platform and try each thing. Instagram's Reels, TikTok's, user interface. What can you create with just the tools given to you on the app versus what you create outside of the app and import into that setting? How do you format things? How do you, grab people's attention in 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds, do you post IGTV videos versus Reels, like with the metrics on those? What has more visibility? Do you want to just put out longer form things in general? What platforms are good for that? And then even then you clip out stuff from the longer form content to put into the smaller form content. Like, artistry is there's so many ways to consume it now, and there's so much emphasis on having, your digital real estate so people can show up and consume it. And that's kind of your exposure bucks too. That's, you put out a video, you don't really have the money to just, pump it up and market it like crazy. So you're hoping that it gets shared. And, there's the term going viral, where like you hope that somehow organically a thing you make gets shared hundreds of thousands of times. And then suddenly your audience grows. And then they regularly consume what you do. You have a bigger fan base, bigger support. You start to expand what capabilities you're able to do beyond what you were currently operating in, And ArtPrize tries to be the thing that people, like, you could see all of ArtPrize from your computer, but you're not going to have that same touristy type experience of walking around downtown and the discovery of art you might not have heard about. So there's it's better than just scrolling through an online gallery, but it can also, people's attention is overwhelmed. You've got paintings, you've got dancers, you've got sculptors, and you've got music, you've got all different things grabbing your attention. And then at the same time, you might also be thinking, all right, where are we going to go for dinner? Should we go get drinks? I wanted to go to this shop and buy this thing. I wanted to check out, the new bakery at this part of town that ArtPrize isn't really involved in. It becomes this like chore to kind of sift through everything. And some people, it's just fun. And that's kind of what it is. It's just kind of like, all right, cool. There's a bunch of art. Let's try and check it out. And some people really make a point to check out as much as they can. They hit the ground every day. They carve out like their evenings and just go check it out because it happens once a year and it's international. And people who are just visiting the city, they make a habit out of it for that time block. They're staying a weekend and they're checking things out, or they're, they got a week with their relatives and they're going to go see it downtown. But who benefits at the end? A handful of people get prize money, sure. I myself have benefited from this. Good time, almost 20 minutes in to be like, hey, I was at ArtPrize. I'll explain that in a second. But, some people benefit monetarily. Some people get the good exposure bucks. Networking can be fun. I just did a performance with a spoken word poet. And if you're listening to this, I will have done a second performance on October 1st. So if you're listening to this on Patreon, you get the scoop. But her name's Micah Irvin, and she, reached out to me to collaborate, and I just improvise under her, her spoken word poetry. And it's great and it's fun, and I like that interdisciplinary art interaction. I liked, just kind of the intimacy of it, two people all kind of focused on the same set of text, the same environment of art, we'll say, like the emotional environment of the art. Not to say that, some of her poetry was about being a woman. It's not like I can identify with being a woman. More so I can identify with just being vulnerable overall. Like a lot of the poetry was very vulnerable and open. So improvising also puts me out in a vulnerable space because it's unplanned. So I have to kind of be alert enough and in tune to what she's doing to react properly, but also relaxed enough to execute what I need to execute. But it's, ArtPrize is, I joke that like in West Michigan, the thing that's going to win a popular vote is like Jesus drinking a craft beer. Like that's the pinnacle. It's like, it's something that people easily recognize. It's tied to something emotional. It's, people like beer. Like that's the craft brew scene in Michigan has exploded in the last decade. And, one year, one of the popular favorites was this giant sketch of Jesus, just a giant sketch of white Jesus hanging out. And people were like, finally, this is the Christian values are coming back into our discourse. We finally, are you kidding? It's Michigan. There are churches every half mile. There are multiple churches within those half miles. Like, there are so many churches. The term church shopping is a term that's thrown around the church space because you can find as narrow of a church as you want to. I just want a small Hispanic church in a mixed neighborhood with, traditional Catholic songs worked in with, Hispanic tunes, and I want it to be bilingual. You can find that. Oh, I want a rock concert with big explosive lights and a video wall. And it's like, yeah, you can find that too. Go to Ada Bible's Cascade campus. They have a light that quite literally, when I tried to interview there to do sound, and of course I was way underqualified, they were like, could you run a multicast live stream to other sites? And do you know how to operate a video wall? And do you know how to, mix the show down to multi-track? And do you know how? I was like, I've only done front of house. I have to learn all of these. But their light, quite literally, was bigger than the ceiling of this office. There was a light in their lobby just hanging from this giant open atrium that was bigger than this ceiling. Like, it's crazy, the size of this light. So, when I saw that piece at ArtPrize and the reaction from, like, some of the public that was, reported in media outlets, it's like, okay, cool. Like, clearly nobody wants to think that hard for art, Like, I get it. Like, there's so much happening in the world, and some people just want to grab onto that thing, that simple thing that brings them joy. And if simple things bring you joy, that's great, because the world sucks. And if you can, like, genuinely be happy that you got a Frappuccino today, like, in that, like, major day, like, sweet. Because I am wholly dissatisfied if I can't at least have, a couple different things happening. Like, if I don't get, like, like, even yesterday I took a day off. And I still, I did a little bit of business and I did a little bit of productive stuff before I just kind of was like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my bandmates. We went to Martha's and had some food. Martha's Vineyard, the convenience store, has awesome food. It's impossible for me to walk into that place and not spend $15. There's so much good food there. And the drink selection is insane. It's like, I've pretty much stopped drinking caffeine and alcohol for the foreseeable future. So I'm always on the hunt for, like, the CBD infused sparkling waters, or they have 3 different kinds of Topo Chico instead of just the normal flavor, or, oh, they have a new root beer I haven't tried, like those are little things that can make me happy, but they last as long as the bottle does. But But like I said earlier, my involvement with ArtPrize goes back to 2013. It was around the time that I was recording with Brad Fritcher, a trumpet player who is originally from Shelby, Michigan, was living in Grand Rapids. We had formed a quartet called Brad Fritcher Plus Trois. We recruited our friend Ryan Wallace, who went with me to Grand Valley State University. And was a classical bass major, but also moonlighted as a punk and metal artist. He's an educator now that also moonlights as a death metal artist. And our drummer friend, Christian Van Dynen, I had met him through the Aquinas College Jazz Camp. We had mutual friends in the city, and we just decided to make a group. And when we recorded at Blue Lake Studio for the Blue Lake Studio session, the first album that came out from this project, I wrote a tune that I had nicknamed Silky Smooth because it just sounded like a, I don't know, not a smooth jazz tune, but it just felt like that's just how it felt, you know. And I think I ended up putting Smooth Silk as the title just to make it not as, you know, cheesy or unprofessional. Although I see tracks now from jazz artists and I'm like, I could have put Silky Smooth, like who cares? But we ended up, you know, we recorded this album. ArtPrize was that fall. We submitted. We did some performances in St. Cecilia. And back then, back in my day, ArtPrize used to award music as its own entity. It used to be that St. Cecilia's Music Society and Mackinac Harvest Studio kind of combined financial forces to offer, I think it was $4,000, and that was $1,000 of studio time tied to Mackinac Harvest, and then $3,000 in a check from the St. Cecilia Music Society. They had a in their basement area where they sometimes do recitals and other concerts that aren't in the big room or in any of the ballrooms. They had a listening station, so you could go there and you could browse through and listen to all of the entries. It was very easy. You know, it was all located there. Performances were done in and around St. Cecilia, so if you wanted to hear music, you'd go there, and you knew you could go there and see it. We ended up winning for submitting Smooth Silk, and you know, we recorded our second album, The Year of the Architects, and that was great. We were like, wow, ArtPrize is cool. Like, you know, we were awarded in the jazz category. There was like, you know, probably 4 or 5 other categories people could be awarded money in, and it felt like, you know, a really great way to get support and get, you know, more direct financial support too. There wasn't a lot of hoops to jump through other than submit your song, maybe play some shows here and there as part of the showcases, and that's it. And now music is part of the time-based category, so it doesn't matter how it's presented. It's all time-based. Sure, you can play live at the Blue Bridge. They put on, you know, concerts there. You can do what Eli did and have a surround sound loop of your, you know, one of your tracks in a gallery. Tom Wall is another person who he's been experimenting with this music for plants from plants. It's interacting music with a device that interprets plants into I think I'm explaining this right. Interprets the electronic stimuli from plants into MIDI data that gets translated into this, you know, into melodies or different, you know, textures, and then you can interact with them via guitar. At least that's what he does, and that's what the booth he set up does. So you can do that route. You can have, you know, what I was doing wasn't considered in the music category, but it was music accompanying spoken word. So music has a little bit less of a definition of what you can do with it in that instance. Like, it's not a recorded track you have to submit. It's treating music as a tool set. but it also removes music as its own category with its own rewards in the community and puts it in with film, dance, theater, anything that is time based. So, oh, you're going to go see this movie. You're going to go see this, this show of dancers. Those are all time based. So, of course, like if you think of America's Got Talent, the dance company with the face masks and the neon clothes, doing crazy acrobatic moves and cool orchestrated choreographed, set pieces are always going to win over like the Bob Boberson band. Like there's no contest unless the Bob Boberson band is doing that. Like the spectacle of it is the spectacle of the dance company is going to add to people's influence of what they vote for. And it shouldn't have to be that way. Like I'm fine having the dance company win stuff because dance is another part of the arts that isn't as funded. Think of the ballet versus like another institution. Most people don't even understand ballet and they won't go see it because they think it's unapproachable, and not realizing how ballet has transformed over the years. It's not just the Black Swan that movie you saw 5 years ago. It's a different beast. It's evolved from tradition, and it incorporates newer interpretations, newer choreographers, newer types of people being involved. But again, this is thinking too hard. And, most people, like another example, I worked a show, the African American Arts and Music Festival this past weekend. And as we were tearing down, one of the things we had to tear down was, or not tear down, but like close, was this ArtPrize piece that, from all I could tell, was a polished, slanted piece of like, I don't know if it was obsidian. It just looked like it looked like a slanted countertop. I'm sure there was more that went into it, but it was so polished that it just looked like a mirror, or it reflected like a mirror rather. And I had a girl come up with her friends and she was like, let's just say her demeanor screamed selfie. Like the way she talked to me was not, hey, you're a human being and I want to chat with you. It was, where is this thing? You're clearly a worker and I'm not working. Just like, cool. And she's like, oh, do you want to go? I want to see the art exhibit. Is it open? And I'm like, no, we closed it. Sorry, we're packing up from this festival. And then she's like, guys, it closed. They closed the thing. And I'm like, oh no, you won't get to see yourself in the mirror. Oh, poor little baby won't get a selfie when you like. All of the things just in my head were like, just keep packing up. I can't unpack just the weirdness of this interaction of like, really? This is what you dragged yourself downtown for, was a mirror? I like the art where it was me. And that's a big part of it. A lot of people who are inspired by art that don't do art, they always say, I want to be able to see myself in it. You just put yourself in that. And people like Bruce Springsteen, like go watch his Broadway thing on Netflix. He literally within like the first half hour is like, I've made a career talking about the working class and factories and Rust Belt towns and being a trucker, or like all these working class idioms I've talked about, in all of my records, and I've never had to do that. The only times I've ever dressed up in a mechanic's outfit were for music videos. The only time I've ever had to worry about the working class was for lyrical ideas. Like, he's never had to do that. And people still love him. It's not a grift. There's now what is it? Kayfab. It's the relationship between the audience and the performer, and the understanding that once the performer gets off stage, there will be other things different than when they are on stage. Some people don't understand that, and that's why they're crazy people who fawn over all artists as if they walk the ground, as these beautiful examples of, like a deity. They're like, dude, you're a gift of God. And it's like, just a person with a talent and a skill set. Let me tell you, I could work with a lot of people and tell you immediately what flaws they have. Nobody's perfect, and the people who don't admit to their flaws are far from perfect. They just think that ignorance and not admitting to fault means that they're never at fault. Just in the same way that if you start a fire and then leave the room, if the whole room burns down, it wasn't because you started a fire, it was because the room burned down. No, you started a fire and the room burned down. Like, you're clearly the cause of it. So ArtPrize is this weird, I have this weird relationship because I'm an ArtPrize winner, but it's in a category that no longer exists. And with a group that is defunct because of just, life happens, people graduate, people are moving and, moving on to other things, which is fine. And in subsequent years, I've entered as my own artist. I've entered as me. I've entered, and I've done the performances that Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. sponsors, these pop-up performances. I've done those where I just get to literally play piano for 3 hours and do whatever I want, and people can be entertained and hang out. I don't have an entry, so I don't tell anyone to vote. I just like, hey, I'm entertaining. Hope you're enjoying it. And now it's this thing that, like, there has to be more strategy involved. Music can't just stand on its own because it's in line with a lot of other art things. In terms of the competition side of it, the person to person side of it, you might make an impact. You might inspire someone. You might do whatever. But there's no, like, I didn't even care that it came back this year. I was just like, cool, it's back. Traffic's going to be bad. There's going to be a lot of people walking around. It's their first time viewing art more than once in a while. And it's their first time, like, asking someone who isn't an art critic or isn't discerning about art to vote on art is weird, because it's like asking someone who isn't a chef to cook for this restaurant. Like, why would you do that? Sure, on the base level, it's fun and it gets people walking around downtown, and it's fun for families, and like, those are all good things. ArtPrize has good things, but for me, I'm not a visual artist, so I can't like hang my stuff anywhere. Performance wise, I'd be giving up if I don't get a weekday performance. Like, here's the problem. Like, I either get a weekend performance that's takes away from paid work. I get a weekday performance that's underattended because people work. I get a weekday evening performance that may or may not be well attended, depending on how many people come down and how many people go seek out music when they go to ArtPrize. Or I get some weird, like, out of the main strip of ArtPrize performance that is underattended because it's not a destination for most people to go consume ArtPrize. Where it's more beneficial for me to be doing a show that I book during ArtPrize, because eventually people are going to get tired of walking around all day and they want to have dinner and go do something in the evening, or they want to sit down and enjoy something and then go home. having a show. Like GR Noir has been doing music every night for ArtPrize. So people who walk past it during the day can go like, oh, I want to check out the wine bar, or I like jazz music. Exposure bucks. But it's exposure bucks with the artist getting paid for an actual performance and the potential to earn more in tips. So, I don't know. ArtPrize it's a thing that's like, it just is a symptom of where the arts are at. Like the fact that it's a competition, the fact that it includes and encompasses all art forms. When it used to have carved up portions to help facilitate the fact that painters and sculptors were competing against dancers and filmmakers. Like, it's really just like, it's an experiment in what turning a city into an art gallery, what it turns into. Does it turn into an appreciation of the art? Does it turn into the appreciation of art in regards to tourism? Does it turn into the spectacle of a international competition that, turns art into the same kind of competitive space as like an America's Got Talent or American Idol or something? And frankly, I'm just, I'm tired. Like, I don't really need to contribute anything. Like, it's fine. I support the people who do the work and are able to turn it into something cool. I've networked for this season. I've networked with people who are related to ArtPrize, but I don't know. It's just a thing that I'm like, I don't need it. Some people love it, and good for them. Like I said earlier, if you are the type of person who, they buy a thing that says, I've got a good catitude, and you've got 3 cats, and that's like your whole life. Like, cool. If only life could be so simple for me. Because I see that and I go like, is this all we really want? Like I guess my version of that is like, I bought like a $16 like PlayStation icon lamp that has 3 different settings, and it fits the aesthetic of my entertainment setup that I want to use for gaming content in the future. And it's just nice to have as an alternative light source for when things start winding down. It's a blue light that's, more relaxing than my overhead bulb or something. So I have those 2. If I know there's a place that's going to have food and it's going to be good food, I'm hype, That's easy. If you're providing me food and, it's a chill spot, cool. It's not a substitute for payment, but, you always get excited for a food. But in terms of like consumption of art, like when you think so, when most of your life is thinking of that line between the creative and the accessible and the high art and the song in a saloon for the working man, like you find the spaces you want to occupy, and ArtPrize doesn't really facilitate those because it's so widespread. It's a simple concept that turns into a lot of different micro issues, whether it's people getting the right presentation for their art, the right location, the right hours of operation, the funding, especially if you're transporting like a sculpture or something, the spectacle versus the intimate, the performative versus the placement art, the art that's just in a fixed spot, the time-based versus the art that's always just going to be visible or consumable. I don't know. It's an interesting cross-section of the art space to have a competition in West Michigan where art is not appreciated. It's not as appreciated as you might think. Like, Sure, you might go to your granddaughter's, piano recital, and that's fun. But what's the next concert you're going to? Do you go every week? Do you even listen to music every day? Do you consume art every day? Does this country subsidize art like Europe? No. Like art is a very personal and subjective thing. I get that. So you're not always going to sometimes you just want peace and quiet. But I've definitely heard all sorts of types of conversations of like, oh, there's no good shows here. And it's like from the dude who wants to see like Buck Cherry or something at the intersection. And you're like, well, yeah, Buck Cherry's not here right now. So, but in the time between when you last saw them to when they're coming now, art exists. Or like same with ArtPrize. Like the 3 weeks out of the year that ArtPrize is there, you get inundated with all the art you could possibly want to see. You could walk the whole town, look in every nook and cranny, look for that little QR code, find anything up and around the city, just ready to consume art. But then the rest of the year, art still happens. There are still people putting on local shows. There are still people hanging art in local galleries. There are still local theater companies, ballet companies, musicals, events all the time. And they're starting to come back post shutdowns and stuff from quarantine last year, but it's also been very tricky because people need the funding to stay open, or they need the attendance to warrant putting on a show, and they need the right kind of attendance so that people don't get sick. And then a tour that, like my friend's on tour right now, and they had to cancel like a week's worth of shows because someone in their crew got COVID. And like, that even if like, okay, it did spread to everybody, he's not in the hospital, like, yeah, but that's still a week of earnings when you have to tour. Like the cost of moving the vehicles and like carrying all the equipment and the personnel, the pay for all the people who are on the road, any insurance, depending on how big the production, the insurance costs, the potential sales from merch, the potential, if depending on the, if it's a smaller thing like tips, some people play a lot of types of music where they know they can get tips, like they're a covers thing or whatever. But like the appreciation is weird because at the core of it, you think of concerts being attended now, and there are some people who are adamant in not doing the bare minimum to ensure health and safety, which is you're right, America. But you can expect to not go see a show, or if you do, you could cause a problem. That's just the consequence of the thing you're choosing to do or not do. And like it's hard. Art is hard, and ArtPrize doesn't make it easier. It is a conversation that isn't really being had by the public, which to get the public to have the conversation is also hard. So what am I advocating for? I don't know. Go enjoy ArtPrize if you want, but also maybe make note of the things you like, the artists you find, the people you interact with. Maybe the artist is at the exhibit. Talk to them. Get to know what they do and where you can support and how you can support. Because just because you walked by and took a photo with a statue of a gorilla doesn't mean that that artist is going to get enough money to pay his rent next month. Just because you watched a film that was really cool and you want to go tell your friends that this film, wow, I can't believe, like I saw it at ArtPrize. I didn't think they did film. It was about this guy and they learned the lesson of how to help people and blah, blah, blah. And then you forget the director and you don't go watch any of the other movies. You don't buy the DVD and they don't get the residuals from it. Or you don't, support. Like there's a commitment. There should be more of a social commitment to art than just passive enjoyment, because entertainment can be consumed from all sorts of things. It doesn't even necessarily have to be artistic. We watch shows about people who are not in real relationships in relationships. Who's gonna win The Bachelor this year? I bet it's Kelly, 'cause she comes from a farm town, so she knows she's a real girl. And you know, Tyson was raised on a ranch in Colorado, so they have some compatibility. It's like, do you? Wow. But again, it's simple, and you might like it. Good for you. It's not hurting anyone. It hurts me, I guess, but that's fine. What do I know? I'm the dude who does this. I play the keys, and I guess, complain about things now. At least for today. But, ArtPrize. It's a conversation. Check it out. It is ArtPrize. Go see ArtPrize. You know who wins? You do, because you went and saw the art. And the prize is seeing the art. It's not the thousands of dollars that could be used to help, arts in a local community, especially in Grand Rapids, where so much art is subsidized to other, places entirely. Like, whole schools don't have art programs, and they go to, WMCAT, or they go, they have, a visiting person come in and be like, this is a violin. And you're like, wow, wish we could buy those, but we don't have money. It's a town that is hosting an international arts thing that is systematically getting rid of arts. I was in an arts program when I went to City High School. They tried to have all of the arts hosted in different schools. So City High School was music, and Ottawa Hills was theater, and we'll save money and everyone can still do arts, but it was after school and not during school. So instead of picking something that would be an enjoyable reason to attend school for some students, it forced students to choose between after school sports and music. And most people chose sports because they liked that better than music. They liked taking the music course during the day because it got them out of math class or something, and it fit an elective requirement. And maybe they grew to love and appreciate art more because they made that choice first out of just being like, oh, I don't want to take an English course. And then they found a love of music, and they went on to go do something in the music career, or they had a better appreciation for music. But no, it's out of school. So you take all your kids to go see ArtPrize, and they're like, oh, wow, I want to be an artist. They're like, shut up and do your math class. You don't know nothing about the arts. And so, yeah, all that. If you like this thing that's approaching an hour, you can do all the things I mentioned at the top of the thing. Follow, subscribe, share, algorithms, marketability, brands, sponsorship, endorsement deals. Save 10% by using the code Go Buy This Thing so I don't have to starve. Internet culture, hustle, grind mentality, brother. Or you could just listen to the podcast. You can support me on Patreon. All the good things. I have some new videos out if you want to go see them. Dogtown Studio put out some videos in collaboration with myself, John Schock, and Brandon Copeland. It was a fun session we did earlier this summer, and Earth Radio is just in the studio, so expect new music coming your way soon. If you're in the Michigan area and want to see some shows, October 9, I am with Earth Radio at Northern Naturals, and October 15, I'm at the Listening Room with Earth Radio, with our friends in Saj Talk, this wonderful band out of Detroit that fuses elements of jazz, classical, opera, electronic music. It's a crazy experience, and it's super fun. And I guess you could also, I don't know, just follow me on other stuff. This is a long outro, so I'm gonna let you go. Enjoy your day, and thanks for listening to this longer episode. I appreciate your enthusiasm as a listener, and you're willing to engage with what I do. And until next time, enjoy things. Maybe you want to go enjoy ArtPrize, and it's totally fine. Like I keep saying, everything's fine. I just have criticisms because it's part of my job to just like examine art and be critical about it and want better for the public, because a more discerning eye on the art means that we raise up the truly great creators that need our support, and not just the people who already have marketing dollars behind them to push out their hair care products or whatever dumb thing. Is people on the ground floor who need your support, and not Beyonce. Beyonce has an empire. She's got her support, and we thank you for it, because Queen Bey will reign supreme forever, and all that. But see ya next time. There we go. End of the podcast. I'm just gonna keep talking. The credits are rolling, and I'm thanking my patrons, and then it's done. Okay, bye.